Kate and Beth had been friends for a while. They first met at a coffee morning arranged in aid of a mutual friends club, and then again at an open day. It turned out they shared a number of acquaintances, but no close friends. An ideal arrangement. It got better. Kate was urbane and single. She enjoyed telling Beth of her life and shocking or thrilling her in a mild way. Beth was happily married to a stable and predictable man, of no interest to Kate. Neither felt their relationships threatened by the other. Beth was serious and concerned. She gave Kate the sort of consideration and advice she couldn't find elsewhere. Kate was impulsive and fun. She could take Beth out of herself when the world got her down. Both in their own way were thoughtful and kind towards their friend. A friendship is in many ways a series of complementary forces, checks and balances, and this one worked well. They'd met that morning in the cafe, overlooking the common, and breakfasted on rich coffee and flaky croissant with wedges of strong cheddar cheese, followed by pain au chocolat, pure and wicked indulgence they both would probably regret later, but enjoyed immensely at the time. The day being fine, they carried their conversation out across the common itself. A little later, one would have found them taking up a bench on the far side to go over some finer points. As they were talking, Beth's phone began to ring. "Sorry," she said with a quick smile. Kate smiled back with a dismissive gesture. Beth pulled the battered mobile from its slot in the outside pocket of her neat, tight-packed shoulder jet bag. But as she looked at the number at the screen, but as she looked at the screen, her mouth set somewhat. Kate looked at her curiously. The phone was still ringing persistently. "Won't you answer it?" she asked. "Don't mind me." In reply, Beth held up the phone and showed the screen. At the top, the number of the caller was displayed, and under it was the name listed as Ignore. Kate examined it closely and then said, "I'm sure I know that number," and started rummaging through her bag. Beth froze. She'd just horribly insulted her friend's friend. Now she remembered she met him at the club of the mutual friend, where he'd played the part of the alpha male. She'd been pleased and flattered by his polite and pleasant attentions to her at first. Trouble had not come until later, when they were alone and he made those proposals to her. Beth dodged being explicit about that episode, even in her own head. Apparently he was unused to rejection, because that was when the more than unpleasant phone calls started. She stopped answering them after the second one, and avoided his company whenever possible, making sure never to be alone with him. But he was persistent as well as unpleasant, which gave Beth a vaguely guilty feeling, as though she'd instigated it somehow. It was all horrid, and now life would be lonely without her friend. Carefree, single Kate would not understand her turning down a popular and personable man like him. She'd lose contact with that other world whose reflected brightness illuminated hers. Kate finished rummaging in her bottomless bag and emerged triumphant, holding her own bright-coloured phone, then pressed a couple of buttons. "I thought so," she said, and held up the elegant device for Beth to see. There it was, the same number. The last 4 digits were enough to confirm that. Beth glanced down at the username that Kate had assigned it. "Fuck off," it read. "What a creep," said Kate. "It was before I met you, and I was going steady with Malcolm, and he simply bulldozed ahead anyway. And when I finally got it through his head no meant no, the phone calls started." She gave a dramatic, involuntary shudder. "What a creep," she repeated. "Didn't like rejection, though. So as soon as I saw the name, I'd just shout it down the phone at him and hang up. He soon stopped." With the relief and dissipation of guilt, Beth felt the full force of the loathing which had been pushed to the back of her mind. The phone started to ring again. He always did that, a repeat call. She held the phone up for Kate to see the screen. They smiled at each other, and as she pressed the answer button, they shouted in unison. Then looked round, smiling and giggling conspiratorially to see who else had been in earshot.